it's our brand.
It's
And
just
it's
too much
our
my belly.
brand. Yeah, I know. That's what I said. You had to move your camera so it's facing a little up, and then you don't have that problem.
Let's see.
So it doesn't
Hello.
focus on
Let
the
me
belly.
go with it on break. We need an on break screen.
There.
Do. Nope. That's branded content. Okay, here we go. Hi, Laurie Corey Cole here. Welcome.
Welcome back to our live stream.
This hat definitely shadows me.
Well, you'd have to lift up the brim a little bit more, or not. Yes, you can look like a jerk. Be my guest.
Fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's Laurie Cole. I'm Corey Cole. We made some games called Heroes Quest and Quest for Glory.
And if you're
Hero
watching
U.
this, you probably already know.
I know, but this is the start of the stream.
So we're trying to give you some context for our stream.
And we didn't have a stream 2 weeks ago because we were working really, really hard at lazing around and overeating.
I wouldn't think it was lazing around, and it wasn't particularly overeating. But
Okay. Anyway, Laurie was doing photography so that she will have more content and more research. That's it. Research.
yes, research.
Research for our games.
Yes, there. Yes, I will talk more about what we did, what we saw, and how it relates to Quest for Glory, because it really does, actually.
So we were up the river without a pair of oars.
Yes, and the river that flooded without a pair of
Yeah,
oars.
so we started out at the lower Danube, not too far, 100 miles or 200 kilometers or so from the Black Sea, where it empties out. But then we're making our way upriver, and we're intended to go upriver as far as Passau, Germany. But by the time we got up to Bratislava, the river above us was so flooded out we couldn't go any further.
Yep, so we got stuck on the Danube River in the city of Bratislava.
Bears Who Care says first, but of course he said that after Belixar posted.
Well,
so
I bet they were simultaneous. Yes. Our trips were very interesting, very intense. Learned an awful lot about Central European history that I did not know, and lived through some of it, which was devastating for the people there, and mostly ignored here in my best James T. Kirk voice.
So did
Yes.
you all know that 25 years ago, 1999, that NATO bombed Yugoslavia pretty heavily and destroyed a lot of buildings and stuff? And
Well, no, it was Serbia, not Yugoslavia.
It was-
Serbia. It did Belgrade.
well, Serbia was
bombed-
part of the Yugoslavia at
It
the time.
bombed Belgrade.
Belgrade? All right,
Serbia.
Belgrade. Whatever Belgrade was at the time. Belgrade,
Yeah,
Serbia.
Serbia.
Well,
Yes.
I don't know. These countries keep shifting around.
Yeah.
We got lectured and all that. Didn't necessarily
Yes.
follow it all.
Right. Well, it was a lot of information.
They bombed a foreign embassy. So this cruise was done through my University of California, Santa Barbara Alumni Association, and it turned out to have a whole bunch of other schools also involved. Biggest contingent was from Brown University.
Yeah.
And
of course, Smithsonian.
and
It
the
was-
Smithsonian
it was,
Institution had the Smithsonian Travelers or something like that. And as a result, it wasn't just a cruise. We actually had lectures every day, and had local area guides telling us about the history of the area, and both recent and older. A lot of
Yes,
these
we
places.
got the basic backstory for all of Central European history.
We learned about the Visigoths and the
Yes, and the
the Huns
Goths
and
and the Huns and the
Habsburgs.
the Celts.
the
And
Celts. Yep.
yeah, all of these people that moved through that area and created the culture and things like that. And of course, yes, yeah, Milosevic did
Milosevic
nothing
did
wrong.
nothing
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
Yep. They didn't go into that too much. They
No,
mostly
they
just
didn't.
said. They mostly
Because,
just said
of
that.
course, when we were there, we were getting the history via the guides who are really living through that. And so we got their story, what they knew of the story. So all of the countries we went through were part of the Soviet bloc.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Cole. Hello,
Welcome to
everybody.
Charlie.
Thank you. Hi, Barry. So we were getting a very different side of the story and different different perspectives on European history than we would have normally gotten. I mean, when I was at school, we barely touched what was the Ottoman Empire. I never even heard of it, and until I read a book much later by the Drawing of the Dark.
Tim Powers.
Tim Powers was the one that showed me that there was even an Ottoman Empire.
And that he had that as the ultimate battle between the East and the forces of the East and the forces of the West.
Yeah.
Christianity versus Islam and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we learned a lot. We had a good time. We managed to not get sick until about 4 or 5 days before the end.
No, actually about 4.
Yeah.
You got sick.
Bit of a cold.
And then I got sick.
Yep.
So, yes.
And Lori hardly ever gets sick, so, it was a nice contagious one.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was telling us, it's just allergies. So I don't think allergies are usually contagious.
Hello.
Welcome,
Leopold
Gelden.
Ruse. Yes.
Yeah, Leopold Ruse, QFG AI Arts. That is a page or a group or whatever you call it on Facebook that basically uses AI tools such as Midjourney and so on to create artwork based on the Quest for Glory games.
So, if you're on Facebook, you should be looking at that.
Yeah,
whether or
really,
not you like AI art.
Yeah, whether or not you approve of it, it's got some amazing images and also some flawed ones, but it's good to see both.
It's amusing.
Yeah,
yes.
It's fun.
It's amusing. Well, thank you for welcoming us home. Yes, indeed. We came home to our brand new house that has been totally redesigned. It's got a lot of decorating to do.
And the panic I was in from the very beginning of the trip was Lori having left her keys at home and myself having taken only a single house key, which I promptly proceeded to lose on day one when we went through airport security.
Right.
And so we were expecting to come home locked out and have to get a locksmith. And it turned out there was one sliding door that hadn't quite latched.
So we could get in.
We were able to sneak in the back way.
Yep.
And we did have the locksmith out anyway the next day to do some work for us, but it was not an emergency work anymore.
Right. So, yes, we had that hanging over our heads, the fact we didn't have a key to get in the house.
By the way, I apologize for the blank wall between us. We will get that
Apologize.
fixed.
I mean, it's just the way it is, yes.
It's our beautiful new apricot wall color. But,
which you can't tell in this. It looks kind of whitish on this.
It's a little yellow. There's a little bit of orange tint to it.
Not in the screen that I'm seeing on your monitor is what I'm looking at.
Where's all seen what you see? Oh, another Fast Time chatter.
Okay, thank you very much.
Trump's word says.
Just wanted to be here to thank you for the Quest for Glory series. I've been playing them while growing up in 1990s Moscow. Wow.
Russia.
Wow.
Except I think it was still USSR in 1990, wasn't it?
Well, I think so, isn't it?
Well, it depends what part of 19.
Yeah. Your games.
89. I think the Berlin Wall came down.
Yeah. Well, it was starting to break up.
It was starting to break up and became Russia. Yeah.
Your games were what helped me learn English and become enticed. And it is enticed with fantasy and gaming. Now I'm a PhD in arts, yes,
Yay.
and planning on writing essays about your wonderful games. Thank you so much. We're so glad to hear you. We're so glad you got to play our games, even though maybe in Russia and certainly in all of the Soviet bloc countries, they were illegal to actually sell there. So you got your pirated versions.
And we totally approve of that kind of pirating.
Yes. It was Russia since 1993. Oh,
93.
Okay. All right.
So 1990. But, I read it as 1990 as opposed to 1990s.
Yes, and that says that it was when Quest for Glory was being made. That history was in the making at the same time. And another first-time chatter who wound up finding us.
Edgar EXE.
Yes. Hey, guys, Quest for Glory 2 had a massive impact on my personal development as a child and got me into PCs way back when. Long story short, you guys have been instrumental in my life, both professionally and personally. Believe it or not. Quest for Glory will always have a special place in my heart. Thanks for everything you've done for your audience.
Let's see. I think we're supposed to be able to make finger hearts.
Finger hearts. That's the the cute little Japanese women that doing on those videos and things like that.
There was a thing in the AARP magazine about how do I make finger hearts with my arthritic hands.
You don't. I think it's the answer. You look silly doing it. Thank you for subscribing. We really appreciate that. We appreciate seeing you guys here.
And I just wanted to say, let's see, Charms Word was going to write essays. Well, make sure you write essays about our more recent games, the Hero U series and Summer Days at Hero U, because we need promotion for that in order to keep our income flow on so we can make more games.
So Vargarden said, what did you think about the Goblin Cave competition AI? That everybody was set to make something about the Goblin Caves. I was not happy with the results. My fooling around... Yes, yeah. One, would be nice to hear another theme wish from you guys for another competition. I honestly think that there were some really interesting things. Yeah, I really recommend you go on Facebook and see what these people are creating, because it's not copycat art. It is really trying to come up with original art using AI as a tool, which is the way it's supposed to be
different viewpoints on what it is.
Yeah.
So what this is all about is the famous cut scenes from Heroes Quest when we did it. We basically ran out of disk space as well as schedule time, but we had planned to, we were trying to do effectively D&D on the computer. So we had planned to have typical dungeons, the underground complex of the Goblin Underground, we call it, and that would have been a pretty major piece of work with several rooms in game terms and a lot of custom programming, and so we reluctantly cut out the entire underground section. All that remains of it is there's one scene in Heroes Quest / Quest for Glory 1 that has a bunch of goblins popping up from behind bushes, and eventually you can fight them, and it's a good way to get some extra silver.
It's the Goblin Generator, yes.
Yep.
But it was supposed to be a cave complex, and what they did with the AI group on Facebook is they came up with a contest to create something of what it should have been, what it would have looked like, and did variations on it. And some of the ways they were illustrating it were really interesting. Reminded me of, ant farms. That's the way I had envisioned the thing to be, but very complicated.
I was going to say, given that even Lori and I disagreed on what it was going to be, if we'd ever made it, we would have resolved that. But so I think everybody gets to have their perspective on what it should look like. Yep. So Lori had this ant farm concept, and I visualized it as, long before the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies were made, but from the book, in the book of The Hobbit, the party gets captured by goblins and dragged down into their underground complex, and that's the sequence in which Bilbo meets Gollum and gets the One Ring. But the rest of the party is meanwhile captured by the Goblin King and the goblins. So I had a whole picture of what this cave complex looked like there, and when the movie came out of The Hobbit, it really actually was not that far from my vision, although way, massively overblown and higher budget in the movie, of course. But
yes. His imagination didn't have quite so high.
My imagination didn't have that much detail, but it did have, a throne room for the king and, warrens for the goblins and that.
Yeah, and reality said we could never do anything like that given the situation and the current state of tools and that.
So this contest was, if we had infinite budget, which we never had at Sierra, then it would have been.
Yeah, so one of the beauties of the AI kind of competitions is this is what could have been, so interesting things like that. You can cross your fingers like this if you want.
What's that now?
Is that love too?
Does that make a heart?
It doesn't make a big love. Mines are too uneven to do that, yeah. Okay.
Or is it the thumb and forefinger?
And Brainiac says, this is what happens when you skip a stream. I get back in the bad habit of taking too long at the library. You're out of habit to make it here.
Well, that's all right. You didn't miss much. We've
No.
only been going for 15 minutes.
Yes, and we were only talking about Europe. Yes. Oh dear. That's why I was stuck for a long time in Quest for Glory 4 in Cranium's lab. No way to get the manuals. Oh yes. Oh yes. That is why we fought. We honestly fought
We did
with
not want to
Sierra
have that. Yes, we did not want to have that copy protection.
And years and years to keep that out of it because we argued that pirates do not buy games. They play games. They do not buy games, and they,
And when they play them, they might give us some word of mouth advertising and publicity.
But by putting in copy protection, you are annoying the person who actually paid for the game.
Yep.
Yes. So yeah, I'm sorry. We apologize. It's not our fault. Yes. Yes. Joshua says, history is always in the making. 3 seconds ago is part of history. Some things that happened are more memorable than others, and some are more, not memorable, but more influential and more, like the pebble in the stream where it just, the ripples go out forever, and certain things, keep going.
So let's say we had a lecture that started out talking about Venus of Willendorf and rapidly got off topic, but it was talking about the movements of the different tribes and groups around Central Europe and finding similar artwork in different places. But then when we were there, we went to the place that was originally Willendorf, and the guy...
No, it was next to Willendorf.
We're next to Willendorf. And the guy just casually mentioned that there was another statue that was, of equal antiquity.
That was in the class. Now, you are giving them names that they may not be familiar with. The Venus of Willendorf is the quote-unquote original goddess, goddess sculpture that was actually about this big and was carved out of stone, and it looks just like, the absolute most beautiful goddess you've ever seen, and and it means it's just like my body.
Yep,
right now.
yep, absolutely. Lori is the epitome of.
Yes, I am the epitome of that goddess.
Except not really. It was plumper than you.
Yeah, well, maybe it also looks pregnant, but.
Yes.
These they're called Venus of Willendorf because they pop up all around.
These Venus statues,
Venus statues, and we just happened to go into a town and said, "Oh yeah, we found one of those." To the guy, the man who was the lecturer in our ship was actually a archaeologist, professor, and he had gone on digs to find these things, and here he is casually coming into this little random town, and oh yeah, we have one of those, and you've never seen it before, so he was just
he was floored.
Yeah.
So just minor stuff. The other minor one was in Belgrade. That we learned that one of the buildings that had bombed out, that had been, I think, the Defense Ministry or something like that.
Yeah. We got to go drive past it.
That Donald Trump had attempted to develop it and had not managed to make a deal, but
when
Jared,
we get back here,
yeah.
When we got back here, we found out that Jared Kushner had
I heard then. Lori doesn't remember, but I heard that he said Jared Kushner was in the process of getting approval on it, and we got back, and I looked up, I was looking up something else and happened to come across that,
yes.
and it said, the government had approved that, and there were a lot of protests of people that thought that this building should remain in the condition it is as a war memorial for American aggression.
So instead, American aggressively bought that for millions of dollars with Saudi money.
Well, it was $500 million of Serbian money, actually.
No, there was also and
$2 million of Arabic money.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
People in that category don't actually spend any of their own money to buy
Joshua says the impression the crossed fingers heart also seems to be associated with bribery. Okay. So yes, don't ever trust cultural things. You never know.
Well, this crossed fingers used to be you would cross your fingers behind your back.
Yes.
And that meant you were lying, and that the other person couldn't see you were doing that.
Yeah, it means foolsy, I'm not lying at all just because I have my fingers crossed behind my back.
Yep. So that's the expression is fingers crossed.
Yeah. Fingers crossed also means hope. You're hoping for something. Remember, fingers crossed.
Yep. So we got up to Bratislava, and we were supposed to continue up the river from there to Passau, but then got the news that there had been massive flooding in Germany and further up Central Europe. Several deaths. It was a big deal, and that we could see that there was a graffiti had been painted on the side of the retaining wall, the embankment of the river was almost entirely underwater.
Yes, we watched while we were sat down for breakfast. You could see the water rising. It was rising that fast. You could see that the graffiti was being covered even as we watched.
And then we watched a old-fashioned paddle wheel ship go up to one of the bridges and proceed to do about a 3-point turn, but it was more like a 9-point turn to turn around because it couldn't get under the bridge.
Yeah, because the water was that high and its smokestack was that high. So it was very interesting times.
So we did manage the rest of our trip, but did it by bus out of Bratislava. We went on, I think, 2 bus excursions from Bratislava, and then eventually took a bus up to Prague, which was the final destination of the trip. And spent a couple days in Prague.
So I'm going to go to the desktop or the on break screen for a second, and look at those buildings in the background, and those lovely red roofs and things like that. My gosh, that's the view we were seeing constantly.
All along the Danube.
All along the Danube. It was like definitely the little towns with the red roofs all over from Germany. From when we went to Munich to take our plane and out of Munich, and all down south, all down to the east.
One major theme going through the various towns and cities was religion. And the influence of the Catholic Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church, Islam, and Jewish religions.
The Slavic Orthodox Church.
The Slavic Orthodox Church.
According to our Bulgarian guide.
To explain it was not a Russian Orthodox Church.
Yes,
oh no.
Yes, and that the Cyrillic alphabet came from Bulgaria, so we had the pride of of this. But what blew me away, because from my limited perspective of what went on in Europe, we always heard about the godless communists, and things like that, and Russia was trying to keep religion not so it wasn't a power in that. And then we'd go to these communist, quote unquote, former communist countries, and my God, the churches were absolutely incredible.
Unbelievable. Gold everywhere.
Paintings. The one, in Bulgaria,
Sculptures.
which is a very poor-looking country, it really looks like it has not recovered from Soviet-era buildings with the cement buildings and things like that. It does not look like it's in the future. It looks like it's still in the 1980s.
Except for the churches, it still looked like they're in the 1400s.
Yes, but when you walked in one of those churches, it was, the Eastern Orthodox / Slavic Orthodox do not have stained glass windows in the old buildings. They have paintings. And I've always, you think of the paintings you can get in church or on the Renaissance era, just before, and they looked really primitive in that. These were not primitive. These were magnificent paintings all over the walls of many, many different qualities and things like that. But
yeah, the one of them was rather worn down, but it had practically like cave paintings, because they had paintings directly on the wall. And the whole sections of it were faded out almost to invisibility, because they said somebody tried to wash that with water, and it was
soap and water. They tried to wash down the walls with soap and water, and
they did a great job of getting it clean, including all the paint.
Yeah, but that was just the one, and it was an old one.
But the other ones, and that was a church you went down into, was steps down. And what did they say was the reason for why they had things?
Because under Ottoman Empire, you could not have a church of the height of a man on a horse.
Man on a horse.
That was your measurement. You could not have a church that was higher than that if it was, for any religion other than Islam.
I think it was any building. But
No,
anyway.
no. It was just it was
okay.
anti-church, so non-Islamic church.
Right.
And as Brainiac says, brutalism basics alongside Gothic glory, quite the dichotomy, and it was. There was so much of that going on. A lot of the statuary in Bulgaria and Serbia were very brutalism statues. I'll show pictures. I'm going to put on I'm going to eventually process my photos, and I will put them on several YouTube videos.
And we also have a bunch of stuff on Patreon right now. Here's our Patreon channel, which if you're a hardcore believer in us, you should be subscribing to. But most of the posts I put up there are public, that you do not have to be a subscriber or patron. But I'm going to be starting to post a lot of the photos that we have from our trip.
You haven't posted any, okay, fine.
I did one, yeah.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so this latest article was back from the Danube.
Yeah, okay, that's a nice picture. You
Yeah.
could just share this page.
Okay, so here's the back from the Danube page.
I didn't mean that, I meant on the screen.
No.
Yeah, show it off. Okay.
Desktop, and then we do a full screen. Yep. Okay. So this was just the announcement of the stream, and of course, this is one of my random cell phone photos.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when, portable cameras and cell phones were like, oh, those are junk devices. You can't get a good picture of that. But this is Budapest. And interestingly, Budapest, one side of the river is Buda, and the other side is Pest. And the Buda side is up on a hill. And we were somewhere looking out the window, Lori says.
Yeah, we were up at the castle area, that whole upper area. Remember where we were?
And
I was looking through the pillars.
And I just took a picture, between the pillars, looking across the river at another castle or a government building, something like that. There's a balloon up in the background.
Apparently they did hot air balloon trips. That was just anchored somewhere down there, just like you could do at the, Wild Animal Park.
Anyways, this is my little cell phone picture. Lori took all the really good pictures using her Canon 90D.
Which we hauled everywhere.
Which she hauled everywhere.
Yes. We had to have a separate suitcase.
Yeah, we had another suitcase just for the camera, and then we did get a couple pieces of clothing in there with padding, but that guaranteed we could take.
Was it worth it? Yes, because it gave me something to do the whole time, and I took over 2,000 photos. So with the only thing, the advantage of digital world is that you can just take photos to your heart's content. Everything.
Yeah, professional photographers in the old days used to take, hundreds of rolls of film and thousands of photos, but, mortals couldn't afford that.
No. Nowadays, you can. Yeah, how much film you would have had to buy in the old days? Yes, you would had to have your film canisters on a bandolero across you.
Yeah, people literally did that.
I mean, I would recommend this cruise to anybody, but I also recommend that you be 50 or older to do it, because all the other people that are along there are probably 60 and older. So, they're old people that do these cruises because they're the only ones that can afford this stuff. But, if you want to see...
I think we were among the younger people there.
Yes, I know.
We're in our upper 60s, so...
So, yeah. It's, but it was informative. It was exciting. It was... We spent the days when the river was flooded. We had to move the ship, 3 times because... the docks were getting too full, and we were 3 ships attached to each other at every dock point, and these things are massive. You don't realize just how big these stupid cruise ships are unless you've actually seen one. But this was 145 meters long.
Is it long?
Yeah.
Ah.
Or it was 135 to 145. I can't remember, but it was 145 meters long, and it was about 35 meters wide. We had a window the size of this back wall practically out of our room to see the river. So
pretty amazing. It was very expensive. One of the things we discovered, though, from one of the people on the cruise was his wife had passed away, and he was there, and he said there's no single supplement, which means that one person goes for half the price of two, and that's slightly more affordable that way. But for a couple, you got to have some bucks to do it, and for us, our excuse was that this was our first really big trip ever, and we've been married 40-some years. Yeah.
Yes, wait till you see the ocean cruise.
So we've been saving up for it all that time.
Yeah, well, this is a river cruise. We thought, okay, it can't, it's got to go on a river. It can't be massive. It isn't massive, not by those cruise ships, not by the ocean cruise ships, the ones that have the swimming pools and the movie stars and that sort of thing.
Yeah, we did the Disney cruise for a weekend down to Baja last year, a couple years ago with our son, and I guess it was last year. And that was a several thousand passengers on board.
Yeah.
This one had a max upper limit of 160 passengers, and the cruise or the tour company limited further down to 102. And I think they said 46 people serving us. So definitely a taste of being rich.
Mm-hmm. How old is your son, and what does he do? Our son is older. No.
Our son is in his mid-30s, mid to upper 30s.
Yeah.
And growing up, he was sort of a latchkey kid as we made the Quest for Glory games, and he saw us working these 60 and 70-hour weeks and being constantly stressed and so on. So he made a resolution early on that I'm never doing that. And he loves games, but not going to be in the game industry.
And he didn't.
So he's a marketing executive now.
Yep. Mostly virtual
Internet affiliate marketing.
Yes, yeah. So therefore, he's got one of those dream jobs personally. If you and we can't tell you who he works for or anything because we never remember. But yeah. Yes. Your problem is you didn't let your son play LSL. If he'd grown up with all the references of how much fun it is to be a computer programmer like we do, he'd like to be like us.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, he saw the reality.
Yeah.
So, yes, playing the game not the same as having your father make the game.
Yeah, and his era was more StarCraft than Leisure Suit Larry, so,
Yeah,
that was
StarCraft and Magic the Gathering for a brief time.
Yeah.
About a year in there. Yeah, he got over it in a year. It took me about 10 years to get over it. Let's see. So we have a grandson who's now 3 years old. So that has been restricting our son's travel a little bit, but doesn't seem like it. Still gets out places.
No, they're planning to go to Japan sometime. I don't remember when.
And I think they went to Mexico this year, or is that still coming up?
That's coming up.
Okay. So yeah, they got us into the idea of world travel is actually possible.
And I really, I think it would be ideal to do these kind of tours because, somebody else is responsible for making the reservations, which, considering that everything had to be, when we arrived in that flooding situation, they had to scramble because every cruise line was doing this, and there were many, it turns out, at the same time, all of them scrambling to figure out how to handle the fact it was flooding.
Yep, a whole bunch of ships stuck there in Bratislava trying to figure out, do we go upstream, do we go downstream, what do we do?
Yes, do you have more children? Well, the answer is we had Quest for Glory.
Yeah, so more children. We had a totally planned family. Lori decided from the beginning she would have 2 children.
Or we would have 10 children.
Or possibly we'd have 10.
I'd have the first 2, but we had to have the rest.
I'd have the next 8, yeah.
Yes, so I knew how that was going to happen.
So we had all this worked out, but once he started, working these 60 and 70-hour weeks on Quest for Glory and discovering what a handful raising a child is, we couldn't figure out how anyone had more than one child.
Yeah, it was like I really wanted to have the time and first, to devote to the child and give him his early upbringing so that he had a good start. But once starting for working full time, and I wasn't initially, so throughout Quest for Glory 1, Heroes Quest 1, he was still, mostly having a mother. And then thereafter, he never saw us again. Yes.
And for his last couple of years of high school, I was working down in LA away from home, so I felt like I neglected, helping him with his math classes and stuff like that. So
He did fine.
He did fine.
Yeah.
He didn't need me.
Yeah. Take advantage of the exchange rates in Japan while one can. Yeah, really. And have you been talking about your trip to Europe? Yes, we've been talking about it. We've been trying to show off. Well, we haven't showed off much because we don't have. I just downloaded the rest of my pictures out of my camera. So, as I said, what we will do is have presentations we'll show on our Patreon and on Facebook. So we'll be glad to show off the things we did and give a little bit of information about what we learned on the way.
Yeah, I got close to 300 photos on my cell phone, and Lori got thousands on her camera. So
yeah, a couple now.
Couple thou. So we have lots and lots of photos, but we'll need to go through them.
Yeah. And a lot of them are, some of them are just discards, but.
Yeah. Well, I was doing things like inside one of the castles.
Yes.
Taking pictures of some of the paintings inside
That's
the castle.
I have a whole bunch with my cell phone too.
And they're perfectly good, but I don't know that they're really shareable.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you could probably Laura Belzar says you could probably curate all your photos you've taken over the years and publish a nice coffee table book or so.
Others, I would actually. Okay, so I'm kind of thinking at this point, we have not been making a profit from any of our computer games. So I've been thinking there's a lot to be said for doing books rather than games. It's basically it requires fewer resources, and you can get them done a little bit faster, and they don't cost as much to make. So maybe we'll start doing that. I do want to eventually get around to editing Lori's book with Michelle Baker and get that out there. We've got some other book ideas that we've talked about along the line and never quite gotten. Arlo Hero, I had mentioned that we did this through AHI Travel, and that's the one that worked with the different alumni associations. Yeah. And Arlo said, his first trip was through AHI Travel. And so he says here, there are advantages to doing the group tours, but I find you outgrow it after a few trips. Also, if you read about amazing things, sometimes there's no tour that goes to the things you want to see. Right. So yeah, we have actually wanted, ever since we were making Quest for Glory 5, Quest for Glory 5, when we started planning Quest for Glory 5, Lori really wanted to go to the Greek Isles and explore the Greek Isles and Crete in particular, and Santorini and so on. And the problem is that we were making games, and when you're making games, you have no time to go anywhere. You cannot take a week or two off.
Unless you're certain other people who make other games who got to go to the castle and
in Germany.
In Germany, yes.
We won't.
Yes, we won't name names, but we will mention there was an awesome castle. And,
yeah, we'll not mention any names, but her initials were Jane Jensen.
Yeah.
That was the way we used to say it. So yeah, she had a great group. Anyway, ain't no time. And B, when we got laid off after doing Quest for Glory 4, all of a sudden we had time. But now we were worried about money because we weren't working. Right. So we should have made the trip at that point. And
it's a shame Sierra wouldn't pay for that. I remember the author of Arthur, Quest for Excalibur, did a trip to Britain for research on his game.
Cepha Squid one time went to Crete was because of academic game conference. So best of
nice. Yeah.
Anyway, so Arlo Hero. Okay, I got through that.
Yes.
So yeah, we do want to do the Greek islands. I don't know if we'll do that as a package tour. I actually ended up subscribing to a guy that specializes in Greek travel, and I get posts from every week that are different places.
But it won't be this year because this year's
booked. This year's booked to full.
Our next event is
Coastal Gems of Ireland. Also,
no.
Oh no, I'm sorry. That's
our next.
Oh, that's September. That's way off in the distance. End of July. We're going to try to catch one day of Comic-Con in San Diego if we can. But then we're flying up to Seattle, Tacoma for the Adventure Game Fanfare. AGFF. Let me see if I can find a link to that.
Fan of Beaver says, in regards to Quest for Glory 5, I assume your boss at the time would say to play Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis to check out Crete. Plus dry expiration for the other. It was, I didn't remember that Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis was on Crete.
Okay, here we go.
It really didn't matter.
Here
okay.
it is.
Yes, this is something to share, and you
Here's
can
a
share
link.
the screen. All right, this is what we're doing.
Okay, so this is July 26 to 28 at the University of Washington in Tacoma, Washington. If you've ever been to Seattle, you know the airport is called SeaTac, which is Seattle-Tacoma. So this is right near the airport.
Because that doesn't click on.
What? Listen.
I couldn't get it to click.
Can't get my mouse to work?
No, I
No,
clicked
it doesn't
on it.
work.
It doesn't
It's
work.
not clickable.
However,
I think it's the best.
the guest list from Sierra people is Ken and Roberta Williams, Al Lowe, Jane Jensen, Robert Holmes, Lorelei Shannon, and Lori and Corey Cole, and Ken Allen. So what a...
That's a pretty good guest list for a
yes,
Sierra fan.
Yeah. So that is where we will be on the July 26th to 28th. Somewhere around that.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, that's about the best you could get, although there are other people. I mean, I'm sure that Space Quest people would like to see a few more names on that, or at least a couple names.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with Mark and Scott, whether they were not invited or just couldn't make it or what.
Yeah.
Scott Murphy's had a lot of problems over the years, so I don't know what his current state is. Mark Crow is just a very busy guy.
Believe it or not, Crete looks very little like it did in that game.
Shame.
Well, not necessarily. We're all making these things up, and,
Yeah.
it's not in ruins with a dock. Afraid not. I hope they record some of that. I don't know what they're doing that. That's up to them, actually. It would be useful, yeah. So, yeah, that's what we will be doing in July, and then later on we're going to Ireland, yes.
In regards to Quest for Glory 5, I assume your boss at the time would say, just play Indiana Jones with the Fate of Atlantis.
I know, I've read that.
Okay, the question is, when did that game come out? I guess it probably came out before QG5.
Yes, yeah. I almost took an Ohio State alumni tour of some of the Cyclades, or however it's pronounced.
Cyclades?
Okay.
I think it's Cyclades.
Okay, but it was far too much.
Cyclades.
Wouldn't even hit all the Quest for Glory 5 fishing village. What a waste then. Oh yeah, the coastal gems of Ireland came up for my university too.
Yeah. I mean, it was absolutely insane for us to sign up for 2 trips from the same company in 1 year, but luckily the first one was wonderful, and so we're really looking forward to the second one. So that's it's coming up. This convention is in end of July. And then mid-September, we're heading up to Ireland.
If you could remake Quest for Glory 1 and got a very big budget, would it be in 3D? And would you add a lot of extra scenes / features? The answer is yes, it would be in 3D, but it might be 3D emulating 2D to keep that feel. Something like we did with Road to Redemption, if you've seen that game. It would probably add a few things because, otherwise it's a waste of money. I mean, especially
if we worked with Ken and Roberta on that, then we would do it in VR.
No, we would not do it in VR. That is not the way of the future. I think it's a good thing for certain kinds of games, and it was perfect for Colossal Cave, personally, but we never got anywhere with the game.
Well, we didn't play it in VR.
Well, no, but we played it with...
We played it in 3D, and it was kind of hard feeling my way around.
Did you spend much time with leads from other game teams, or were you genuinely too busy on your own projects? And that answer is,
the latter.
What other teams?
Yeah, no, we knew the other teams were there. We actually mostly knew what games they were doing, but everybody was off their own world with their own teams. Different rooms in the building for the team members.
Yeah, we never saw other people, really. We only saw them at Sierra Christmas party or special luncheons and things like that, which we got a couple of those.
So when we were, go back to webcam. When we were doing the educational games, Lori was doing Mixed Up Fairy Tale, and I was doing Castle of Dr. Brain. I was actually technically the programming manager for all of the educational games. which got me into the conflict with the producer of EcoQuest because she was told that she was in charge of all the educational games, different roles. But those three, we obviously, I was managing the team for EcoQuest, or the programming team, and contributed slightly to it. And of course worked on Lori's game as well as my own.
The question was...
So there was some crossover there, but in general...
Arlo says, I didn't know that Scott Murphy had some problems, but I've heard he's made controversial posts about what jerks everyone at Sierra. Well,
hopefully not about us. But
we will
he
not.
was jealous of us. I found out. We were really surprised.
Yeah, because we were jealous of him.
We were jealous of them. So,
so we were all even.
So it was all even. It turned out that basically all of Sierra's marketing and advertising money went into King's Quest and Phantasmagoria. Not so much into anybody else's games.
Yeah, so.
Allo did okay with his games because he was the type to blow his own horn and make sure that he got what his share. But the rest of us were effectively feeling like if we rocked the boat at all, then we'd be out of there.
Yes, but we've all been through many different experiences at Sierra that were not always positive. And Brainiac says. Yeah, he did. Ken Williams did help with Space Venture, or at least offered to help.
We don't know if that actually, turned into anything. But he said that he was going to help them finish the game. Effectively, the game was already released, but full of bugs. So it needed, A, to be cleaned up, and B, probably to move to other platforms.
Yes.
So it takes time. If you've got a game on the PC, it doesn't just magically move over to the PlayStation. You've got to, or the Xbox. You've got to do a lot of work to get it there.
Yes, and Brainiac mentions that Al suggested Torrance Passage becoming an off-year series to release whenever King's Quest didn't have a release. Smart idea, but never came to fruition. Definitely what we were trying to do with Quest for Glory was to be in the off years between King's Quest. And it made sense, but again, Sierra was the one that pushed the budgets.
Unfortunately,
and the deadlines.
Games ended up when they ended up, and sometimes were in the same year as a King's Quest, and it was completely senseless to have a King's Quest and a Quest for Glory come out in the same year.
But that was the powers that be made those decisions, not us. Yes.
Now, my one that I really wanted was we had Castle Dr. Brain out on Windows, and Sierra was talking about, Ken was talking about getting all of our games onto consoles and and handhelds. And I said, Castle Dr. Brain, that is a perfect game for portable devices, and it could be a huge additional market. And he was like, no, I don't think so. But later on, Brain Age came out and made a fortune, and maybe that would have worked, but never made it to these console platforms.
Arlo says Sierra being toxic but is not being toxic but intense when you're part of a team creating something great. It's
little of each.
A little of each, and usually it wasn't the teams that were toxic. It would be the administration experiences or the deadlines and things like that were making it toxic.
So basically, if you look back on them from a historical perspective, what we did at Sierra, what everyone did at Sierra, was impossible. All those games came out in 8 months to a year, and that by any other company standards, should have taken 2 or 3 years for each of those games.
Yep.
So we were really under intense pressure all the time.
What parts of Quest for Glory 1 VGA did you like the least when it was finished? The timing on puzzles, the polish. I didn't feel like it was polished. And I didn't like some of the decisions that were done in the background.
Yeah, so it's a question of fairness to the players. So the idea was we wanted things to be real time because that kept things exciting. And we're also doing, something like, a comedy animated film. And so real time works well for that. But if the timings are too tight, then you just get frustration for the players. and in particular the cemetery,
Yes.
where as soon as you step into the cemetery, the game takes your hands off and kills you, unless you've used the undead unguent beforehand. That was never the intention. In the EGA version, you step in the cemetery, you see all these ghosts around, and then you have time to use the undead unguent, was the intention. So that was a minor one. The worst one was the Brigand Fortress in the end game. Then all those arcade puzzles of falling down trapdoors.
Part of it was that computers were getting faster, and so the timing was going to be thrown off that way.
Part of it is that it was actually bad in the original, and we didn't know it.
Yeah.
It felt worse in VGA, but that's because it was more realistic graphics.
It needed to be re-polished, as I said.
And part of it is the design was a little bit unfair, and you get killed off without really doing the wrong thing.
On the art background, I didn't like what they did with Baba Yaga's lair. I thought it was just too weird, and I thought that her design was too weird, a little too weird too. But actually probably more accurate. It probably looked a lot like the actual pictures illustrations you see of Baba Yaga.
So anyway, some issues, but really nothing major that we had a problem with in Quest for Glory 1 VGA. Lori did the all the menus and stuff for the point and click, and there were issues about how to make puzzles work when you're no longer typing in words, and so the game kind of gives away the answer in the menus. So she came up with some ideas like with the password for the Thieves Guild that it just doesn't appear in the menu unless you've gotten the password, stuff like that. So a lot of both the teams and Lori experimenting with what would work in a new format.
All right, let's see.
With reference again to Arlo Hero, that I always described working at Sierra as a roller coaster ride. That we had amazing ups and some really low lows. Or the other way you can look at it is some really exciting drops, and then the tension and stress as you're climbing and you don't know what's coming next.
Well, yes, and there was, there were all sorts of things going on, and it was a pressure cooker, so that happens. And there were personalities that really didn't belong where they were, and some people had worse than others. As stressed out and as bad at times as we had at times, we still, can't complain too much, because honestly it was a great
amazing opportunities, and really got to do what we wanted to do.
And now
you want Phantom Beaver's question?
yeah, you can answer that one. I wasn't sure how to answer that one.
Okay, Phantom Beaver asks, do we know who decided that clicking the Sierra button in any Sierra game will open the floodgates to a lot of spam?
I have no clue.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Initially that couldn't do anything other than bring up the information about Sierra. So I have no clue.
So I don't know what that was about.
Yes, and did you like the stone circle outside the mushroom ring in Quest for Glory 1 VGA? I don't remember it. Honestly, we will be replaying that version of the game.
Yeah, because we did the EJ version previously.
Right, and we will.
So in 6 or 7 years, we'll probably up to Quest for Glory 1 VGA.
Well, we could do it in order of how they came out. We could do it in release order, but we'll see. Okay, and hi Coles, haven't been here forever, but I just saw you got back from my hometown, Budapest.
Yes.
Yay! It was an amazing city.
I should have worn my Budapest t-shirt,
Yes,
except we didn't get one.
No, but I did get a Budapest bag. Yes, we got a tourist bag from it.
This was kind of, I was going to say, so Lori went to all this amazing Central European cities and towns, and all I got was this t-shirt.
And I went to all those amazing things, and all Corey gave me was a cold. So, therefore, we're even.
Oh, yeah, I got the cold, too, so it was fair.
Yeah, really. Uh-huh. But Budapest is amazing. It really is one of the highlights of the
It was
thing.
incredible. the tour guide had the teaser about what was her favorite city, and at the end revealed that actually Budapest was her number one.
Yeah. So yeah, it's so scenic, amazing. These, what you don't realize is that everywhere you look in the Old Town and / the places we were at, there is something to see, and it's just old stuff, old Art Nouveau revivals and eclectic art. Yes, it's got everything.
So our hotel at Sofia, at the very beginning of it, Sofia, Bulgaria, was a quadrangle. That the complex of buildings included the presidential palace at the other end.
Yeah, it was.
And in the middle of the quadrangle was a medieval church.
Yeah. And in front of the hotel, right across from it, was literally this this huge church that was the place where, it had a lovely dome because it had probably originally been built in the Ottoman Empire era as a mosque. But it had been converted to a church, and
sorry,
they had at one point somebody wanted to kill the king of Bulgaria and had set bombs all through the top of that dome, and when the king was supposed to be there, they blew it up and killed a lot of people. But the king was late. The king was late and he missed it. So
late to his own coronation.
Late to his own funeral, really.
Yeah.
So.
He chose well.
And my daughter, real life Tilly, who is pretty much a rogue, is turning 7 today. Congratulations!
Yay!
Happy birthday,
Tilly!
Yes. Yeah.
So you'll see more in Lori's photos coming up, but everywhere we went was amazing. But the churches were especially amazing, and just
well.
Huge amounts of money and artwork
Belzar says, I heard the Budapest Parliament buildings are stunning lit up at night, especially when viewed from the river. I heard that Prague is beautiful too, and the favorite of more than a few. Okay, in that Budapest at night, literally, they had our ship take off at nighttime up the river.
Just so we
could to show
cruise
off
by them,
that river. Because all of the buildings along the river are lit up, and it is absolutely phenomenal. You've got to try and find a picture.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you'll have to hunt it down.
Well, you keep talking.
I will keep talking. So, yes, it was definitely one of the things that there were 5 tour guides that are the main people that are running it, and they really were just kept saying this is going to be awesome. This is going to be absolutely amazing. That's not very exciting though. But you could show these. I mean, you could just yeah.
Okay, so
this gives you an idea of what we were seeing. Yeah.
There's one of the another one of my cell phone photos.
Click through. Yeah.
Not that way.
Not that way. You can't click through those.
No.
Go to the darker ones and things like this one.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. So I'll full screen it.
In fact,
there we go. See, that's what you're seeing at night. Yes.
All the lights along the river and the riverbanks and administrative building up in the background. Well, that's the Royal Palace. Okay, says Abigail.
Thank you.
Yeah, we haven't classified them yet.
No, we have to really. Thank you for letting us know, because we're it all starts to fade into
a bedroom.
Everything starts to
all right,
come together.
What's this one then?
That was the high school, isn't it?
Was
the guy. One of our local tour guides had gone to high school here.
So that was the best high school in Budapest.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Prague was amazing too, and Prague is, yes, again, one of those places you cannot turn around and not see something to look at.
And totally eclectic, because all kinds of different art styles.
Yeah.
There's some random thing.
Random church.
Oh, there's a random church.
That's the blue church.
Oh, that's the blue church.
That's the one that they said that everybody waits to get married at.
Was that Bratislava?
I think that's still Budapest. They take years to get their.
Hey, I took a picture, Lori.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want me to click on it
No.
though. There's a terrible selfie.
Lots of terrible selfies. Oh, that's that's the part.
Yeah, this is the gardens outside of a palace in.
That's gotta be the big palace, yeah. Any rate, yeah.
So all kinds of stuff. Here's
That school looks even more impressive than Hogwarts. Yeah.
random painting in a palace.
Yeah.
Yep, but not as impressive as Who Are You?
No. So, at any rate, we could go back to the webcam and things like that. Yes.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh, nice! I've got a picture of myself right in front of that. And naturally, let's see. Arlo says the gilded churches and palaces during my European trip didn't impress me. Maybe because it was the next trip I took after Africa. Reading about how it was the slave trade that financed all that luxury left me wondering whether anyone really needed that extra gold statue enough to make it worth destroying families for generations.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out how they, from people that were, not making a whole lot of money, somehow managing to finance these, the enormous amount of gold in these
Whether
places.
it was the slave trade or the gold they were coming in from the New World.
It's coming off of someone, yes. And from our viewpoint, putting them in churches isn't the best thing, but it gave them hope. It was their social center.
It does have a point, and I can see why eventually the communist governments decided that it would be very bad to try to take down those churches, because honestly, you walk into that and it's like, wow, you're in another state of mind. And all the Slavic churches, you can't sit down, so you're standing there the whole time. You probably get dizzy and everything else. So it is like an otherworldly experience, and I do not think it's the best use of money at all, but it was amazing.
But they were, they were beautiful. Mm-hmm. And I was surprised that nobody had gone up there and scraped off them. But apparently,
even outside the
actually,
churches.
Yeah, the whole dome covered with gold leaf. But apparently, there's so little actual gold in gold leaf that you'd have to scrape off an awful lot to get it. You
know how much gold is worth? It would be worth your effort, yeah.
Yeah, considering a 1 ounce coin is a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, Jacobine says enjoyed listening to the stream about your trip while getting my butt kicked in Elden Ring. Oh well.
Okay, we're responsible for that. You're getting your butt kicked because you're being distracted by the amazing things we're saying.
We were right next to the Green Liberty Bridge.
And we did visit the Great Market Hall.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we walked into the Great Market Hall and bought...
we bought some
paprika!
Paprika! I love paprika, and we got a couple things there that we won't talk about here because they might be gifts for someone later.
I don't think our son is watching somehow.
Probably not.
Yeah, so yes, we did do the Great Market Hall. We were parked right out front of that high school. And
we bought them a sausage in Croatia. We were told that... Excuse me.
Yes.
As long as things were shrink wrapped, we'd be okay. But customs had a different idea. They said no meat,
no meat,
no vegetables.
Couldn't bring our Croatian
sausage. We had an apple and a banana left over
from the airplane.
From the airplane, we forgot to eat those, and so they got confiscated.
Yeah. Oh well.
Not a loss.
Phantom Beaver hasn't been to Budapest yet, but visited Prague a couple of times, and basically every European city that's been around for that has some amazing views. I'm sure they do, but again, Prague is fantastic. Budapest is fantastic. Yes.
I can't remember what was the city that had been destroyed like a dozen times and rebuilt.
Well,
was that Budapest? I don't remember. Anyway, so yeah, some of these really have been through some hard times where they keep rebuilding.
Nobody needs a yacht bigger than a mansion either.
So I was going to say on Prague, there was stuff that was brutalist architecture. There was stuff that was Art Deco. There was stuff that was Art Nouveau. There was statuary from the Middle Ages and from the Renaissance. And
there was a Tim Burton retrospective. I mean,
there was a Spider-Man and a Stormtrooper.
On one of the
store
shots,
windows.
Yes.
Yep. They had a full-size Stormtrooper statue. It was,
And
So
Phantom Beaver says it depends which country regions you visited, though. There are definitely many Western European countries that participated actively in colonization slave trade, but there was whole huge parts of Europe that never did that firsthand, including Central Eastern European countries that the Coles visited. Well, they were part of many of them were part of the Austro-Hungarian dynasties,
and the Ottoman Empire,
and
yeah.
of course Habsburgs had their fingers into every country, almost literally, because they married into all the different families there, and they were definitely benefiting off the exploitation of the Americas and anywhere else they could, and they usually spent that money either trying to one up some other king or prince, or they used it to finance the wars that eventually broke the empire. Yes. The great market is where their mom does their shopping every day.
Oh, cool.
Not the touristy part on top, but the supermarket in the basement. Well,
yeah.
We did the touristy
We
parts.
did the touristy stuff, yep.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's where we bought our paprika. Yeah.
And a couple other touristy things. We got a couple of bags, one from Budapest and one from Prague.
And yes, Europeans exploiting other Europeans. Well, let's put it this way: if there was a king, he was exploiting somebody else, because that's the way it works.
Maybe his own people.
Yes.
So it was quite an experience, quite interesting. I maintained my perfect record of always getting sick after a trip, but not too badly. I've been worse.
Yes.
Main problem has been sleeping since then. I've been waking up at 5 or 5:30 every morning and having trouble getting back to sleep.
Yeah, the ones Corey showed the pictures of those statues were in a palace that was the Habsburg trying to outdo.
Napoleon, yes.
Not Napoleon, trying to outdo King Louis,
who
King
was
Louis,
doing
Versailles. At the same time, he was making this palace, and he was trying to outdo Versailles.
And discovered that that's a lot more expensive than he had.
Yes.
I mean, Versailles basically ended up, bleeding the French people dry to pay for that.
Right. And so he tried to, but he didn't make it.
So.
Yes.
It's about half as impressive as Versailles, which is awfully darn impressive.
Yeah. Hungary wasn't a willing part of the Habsburg. They literally colonized us until 1867 when we got independent statehood. Yes.
Habsburgs had their tendrils everywhere.
Yes.
So there was Spain had a...
Spain had the Habsburgs, and it was the Spanish version of the Habsburg family that got the really serious inbreeding going on. The ones in
the infamous
Austria,
Habsburg lip.
Yes, the Habsburgs in Central Europe and Austria. Basically, if they had a big family, they married all their daughters off to somebody else. So
they married all the foreign kings and princesses, so that they could maintain diplomatic relations.
Yes, so that they wouldn't have wars all the time. That was the idea. Yes. So yes, that's human history in general, and unfortunately, it hasn't been that much better in the last 1 to 2 centuries. No, it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, when we're seeing a building that was bombed by by NATO and just 25 years ago, it's like, oh my God, that was current history.
That was our life, yes.
That was not just our lives. That was a post-quest for glory. You know?
Well,
It's very recent history, relatively speaking, by this fandom.
And Arlo says, I think an argument can be made that the slave trade reached new levels of cruelty with the way the slaves were packed into the ships and things like that. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. They are just horrendous. The whole situation is horrendous. And yes, I would agree that it's comparable to the Holocaust, because honestly, it's treating humans as though they were nothing more than expendable tools to throw away that aren't even worth as much as a good tool.
It's a good pencil.
Out like how Queen Victoria became the grandmother of Europe. Yes, relatives to the Habsburgs. Yes.
Yep.
Slave trade was the richest 1%, not the rest of us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually the same thing with the War of Northern Aggression, aka the U.S. Civil War, is that the slave trade in the southern U.S. was pretty much I don't know if it was 1%, but I think it was the top 10%
Yes.
of wealthiest Southerners, and everybody else really did not benefit directly from the
No, but
the
they
slave trade.
certainly were indoctrinated with believing that's part of their culture. So
And believing that they were superior to the slaves.
yes. No one's talking about blaming all Europeans. We're talking about why he wasn't impressed by the Gilded Churches. Yes, exactly.
Well, the only problem is they don't allow flash photography, so we were only impressed to the degree
Yes.
that Lori was actually able to get photos.
No, that's why you have cell phones. I don't care how good your cameras are nowadays. You better have your
Well,
cell
some don't
phone.
allow photography
Yes.
at all, but
Right.
most of them do.
And I didn't mind that.
Some of them charged to do photography.
Well, the churches nowadays do not have the Habsburgs supporting them, so, and they don't have other places supporting them, so they rely on the kindness of tourists. Because the people that go to them don't have that much money to begin with either.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out what OSU's thing is in reference to.
I don't know.
My lab members recently raided and deactivating one for free tools and materials. Wound up with repeating Pipator.
It's
That literally said made in W
in
Germany.
West Germany. Yes.
So there hasn't been a West Germany for quite a while, but there was when I was an exchange student in Berlin in high school. That was definitely West Berlin. But I did accidentally, I intentionally traveled to East Berlin once, and I accidentally traveled all through East Germany when I was supposed to have been taking an express train to Copenhagen. And got on the wrong train and ended up taking the local train all through East Germany instead. And,
So you were behind the Iron Curtain.
I was behind the Iron Curtain, and the people there were really nice.
Yeah, I would say yes.
Totally indistinguishable from anyone else.
Yeah.
And they were thrilled to have an American visiting them.
And also, so it's funny that's how the 1% still gets everyone else to fight wars for them. And yes, keep that in mind, people. Anybody wants to fight a war, who benefits from that war? Nobody but the top 1%. Yeah.
All right. Superiority doctrine.
That superior doctrine is incomprehensible to me.
We're role players. We know how to imagine how other people act and feel.
Yes, it's because they need
not
something in their life to look down upon, because
their life sucks.
Their life sucks. Yes. And
So-
maybe they deserve that life that they suck, because they can't, think of how to get out of it, but they can't. But they'll find somebody else to despise. All right.
And as for getting out of it, I once talked with a guy that was a coal miner in West Virginia, and he talked about how horrible it was and the conditions and so on. I said, why don't you just drop it all and pick up and move? And he said, no, it's not that easy. And went through why effectively you can't just get a bus ticket and get out of town. It's a new place to go to, probably won't have jobs for you either. You won't have any family or support system. And you'll still have your black lung from your time in the coal mine.
Yeah, and the coal mines did pay. And so people that did not get black
Well,
lung,
they locked people in because they had the company store.
yes, they are locked into that. So there's no easy answers to anything. It's more complicated than you really think.
Social injustice has no easy answers.
Yeah. People are people everywhere. Every culture and every age has people who are nice and people who aren't. Yes, but the trick is to not let the nasty people be all you see. Remember that that people are varied, and there are a lot of good people out there. It's easy to get into the mindset that it's hopeless, that these guys are so jerky that you cannot, even relate.
Nope.
And
Whereas Boxar says, people are people everywhere. Every culture and every age has people who are nice and people who aren't.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
And greed is dangerous, and prejudice is dangerous, and we all live with the consequences of it. So that's why we make games, so that you can, play a game where such things are not the major, or even if they are, because we had prejudices in our games. Certainly, when you went to Quest for Glory 4 and you get to go to a Slavic country, you are seeing the prejudices of those people against you. But you learn how to get past it, and you learn how to get around it. And it's easier in fantasy games than it is in real life.
Yep. It's tough to survive enough days and end up being friends with people, or doing enough heroic quests for them helps too.
Yes. Currently, Europe is made of roughly 45 to 50 unique countries. Yes, and each one, it's like what I learned was the Czechoslovakia. When Czechoslovakia, which was one on our maps since World War II, broke up. The reason Czechoslovakia broke up into the Czech Republic
and Slovakia
was because two men decided it would be so, and rather than do a referendum to see if the people who actually lived in those countries wanted it,
we just said, make it so.
Make it so, and so they split the country.
And one of them became the Prime Minister of Slovakia, the other became the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic. Amazing coincidence.
Yeah, wasn't that? So, yeah.
We were warned about confusing Slovakia with Slovenia, very different countries, different places. But we didn't actually get into Slovenia. Let's see.
Yes. Delandria says, I appreciate the tone of your games a lot. Well, we try. I mean, honestly, it is coming from a mindset that, people change, people grow, and people get better. That is the mindset going in. And that there's a lot of wonderful, astonishing, and fun things to see and do in life. You just have to go and look for them.
Yeah, we know that American tourists have a bad rap as, the ugly Americans and so on. We saw absolutely nothing of that attitude during this trip. Nobody looked down on us Americans. They were all happy to take our money and happy to, service and share with us their culture and their communities. So I heard absolutely nothing putting down America, except for the thing about the bombing out the buildings.
Yeah, they weren't putting us down, they were stating fact.
Yeah.
So we went to some 10 actual places that we toured.
It was a 15-day trip, sort of, probably 13 days of actually being there.
Yeah, and we basically had local tourist guides for every location, and we got their backgrounds, their perspectives on what we were seeing. So it wasn't just a pocket tour of, trying to force feed us views. We were getting what they felt and what their opinions of living in this situation.
It was a tricky compromise because we got to see lots of places, and that was amazing, but we also would have liked to have been able to zero in on each one and just spend more time there and learn more about it.
So I agree with you, Arlo. You just go in and do a sampling with the main tours, and then you can actually...
Yeah, then you go back later and say, okay, I really enjoyed Budapest. Let's go to 1 week visit to Budapest and really explore it more thoroughly.
Yeah, we got to stay at Bratislava, but unfortunately, with that and Prague, we were starting to not fill as well as we could, so we didn't actually get in to make the best of those times.
Plus, we were being bussed out every day to different places.
Yes, so we were bussed to Vienna. Yeah. We were bussed to Krems.
So Krems, and what was it Milk? Was the
Krems
was the monastery?
Yeah.
So by that point, I actually went back and didn't make it up to the monastery. Lori did. I had tried to talk her out of skipping that day and just going around and exploring Bratislava more. But she said that the monastery was amazing and really enjoyed that day. But I was not feeling well, so.
Well, it was in cribs or with milk, whichever one is what, that they had the Venus there.
Did you see it?
No, I did
No.
not. You and I were together that time, and you were starting to come down. But,
Yeah.
and I sent him home, sent him back to the ship, banished him from the tour.
So I recommend that everyone find a way to travel someplace extensively at some point in your life, and I also recognize that. I have dollar shock because it used to be $1,000 was a pretty hefty amount of money, and the $10,000 was a fortune. So the cost of these trips is for two of us is really up there.
Yes, it is definitely.
And the base cost that you see in the brochure is great, but then you have to pay for airfare. Our additional expenses were a lot lower than I expected them to be. So most of it was included in the tour price plus the airfare.
Yeah. And the fact that there was flooding, and we had, to change plans and things like that, and get things rearranged, and we had to sit in Bratislava for a few days when we should have been going onward. Nobody complained. The people that were on this tour were all slightly older people, and they all took it very well. Nobody was unhappy or blaming anybody.
Wow.
We could all see that the river was rising, and we could understand what the situation was. So it was a good experience in terms of people that were with us too.
Part of my trip, of course, was the quest for the ultimate marzipan. I was a little disappointed. The different marzipans I got were good, but nothing was truly blow
He
out.
didn't find the ultimate. Yes.
The ultimate,
Let's see.
the prototype marzipan.
There are things that are present in many European countries. Mandatory paid vacation every year, paid paternity leave, paid sick leave, healthcare systems for free, taxes done automatically, less gun violence, yes, indeed, and
In the whole of Europe when
yes.
compared to just one country, the USA.
Yes.
But the size of Europe versus the size of the USA is...
the other one was under communist state. The one thing that a lot of the guides mentioned was the fact that it took 10 years to get your car. If you wanted to buy a car, or in one country it took 20 years to get your car. You would sign up to get your car, then in 20 years you'd get in the lottery to actually get it. So they said you signed up your child when he was first born, so that when he was 20 he could actually get his car. And
that's one of the negatives, but at the same time they also said they had full employment during communism.
Oh yeah, because it's illegal to be out of a job.
We had the joke in Russia that anything not mandatory is forbidden.
Yes, which came right out of Brave New World or 1984.
One of those.
Or Animal Farm and that sort of thing. Yeah, and... okay, fine. I'm not trying to...
You're right by the mic. Yeah.
I know, well, that's why I moved the mic back further.
Yep.
Let's see. What was I going to say there? I've lost that train of thought because of that. Yes.
Somebody told you
and we went through, Bulgaria, Croatia, Serbia, and Hungary. And in those countries which were most, were strongly under the Soviet rule, Soviet satellite instance, we didn't see any beggars or people that were homeless. We did see in Bulgaria a lot of places that had been destroyed during the war or had just simply collapsed because of old age. And they were, you'd see a house there entirely collapsed. All the brickwork, all of it is just collapsed in on itself. And it just had sat there for 30 years or something. And nobody bothered to take those bricks and make something else out of it or anything like that.
There were a few beggars here and there.
Well,
Prague had several.
Prague was where we saw them, and
But
God, the ones in Prague looked like we had gone back to 100 years in the past. These people were on the ground prone with their hat out in front of them.
Just not saying anything, hoping people had something.
It was the beggars of the last century.
We had the people missing one or both legs and stuff like that.
Yeah, just a few, not many.
Which Tim Powers, the Anubis Gates, had the thing with the Beggar King in London, and having said basically his army of beggars, and well, if you really wanted to be successful as a beggar, they would cut off a limb for you, so you'd be more realistic and more pathetic.
Yeah. So in the lower countries, the more ones under it still had more of the communist manifesto type of thing that they'd been under. They still didn't have a lot of poverty because it's still not legal to be, a beggar.
So anyway, there are lots of really good things in European cities, but it's pretty good things in the U.S. too. But income inequality is a severe problem everywhere in the world, and possibly worse here than in other countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is everybody kind of assumes their culture is the best because that's what you are taught. We are all good little comrades who are force-fed from beginning how good,
Or those of us can keep a perspective, look at different countries and say, yeah, that part of it's really good.
Yes, we want to
could benefit
from that. We're humans. We're not just Americans or Soviet Union. Yeah. I enjoyed the performance tour I was part of in college. France, Germany, Switzerland, and Italy. Wow.
Very nice.
France was particularly good since we got to sing in Notre Dame before the fire, long before, yes. And it went over so well, we were invited to sing for Sunday services. Wow.
Nice.
That's really nice. And Italy was the longest part of the tour. There's so many things to see there, yeah. What a great experience, Brainiac, yeah. Begging is illegal in communist states, I think, yes.
And of course, we knew nothing about glee clubs until the Glee and the a cappella one, Perfect Pitch. So we never really heard of glee clubs before that.
Yes, and the Chinese government and San Francisco governments cleanly timeless out when each other come to keep the illusion alive. Yes, I really think that we need a better approach to dealing with this than either arresting people that are homeless. We don't. It's not like our prisons aren't already overflowing, and or sweeping them aside and as if they don't exist and hoping somebody else will deal with them. But that's just it. My experience has been there's an assumption in the European mindset that they're the best, and they feel insulted when this belief is challenged. Most of Americans, if you ask them, and not this elite group that we're talking to now, but America uber alles is definitely a thing.
We're the best.
We are the best. So it's just a matter.
So it's just wherever you're from.
Yeah, you will have that.
That's the same thing with religion. Your religion is probably the religion of your parents and grandparents.
Yes.
Whether you're Islam or Baptist or Jewish or Roman Catholic or whatever, pretty much depends on where and how you grew up.
Yeah. Vergellen says, is it often people recognize you when they accidentally pass you by? Anyone ask for an autograph? We've had it a couple times in our lifetime. Once.
We did get accosted at the Costco near us.
Yes. Because they were familiar with the stream.
The stream, yeah.
But remember that, the other time we did that was at a convention. Sorry. That was was E3 or something like that. So it was context. But remember before, when we were actually doing these games, nobody saw us in real life. They didn't, they only saw us in terms of names.
The Space Quest scene where they had people chained to cubicles and Rick Cavan going around with his whip. That was pretty much what working in Sarah was like. So
yeah. It wasn't that inaccurate.
It was not that far off, no.
In terms of safety net you get as an individual, I would say the European Union is the best place you could be born in as an average person. There aren't handouts for nothing, of course. You still need to work, but when compared to living in many other regions, in terms of stability, infrastructure, equality, etc., I don't think there's a better region. Cool.
Also, pretty good to move there. I mean, like Germany has free university for all, and if you move to Germany, you're allowed to attend the university. So it's not strictly for native-born. U.S. has had a big push to differentiate native-born Americans from immigrants. It's just kind of silly because people are people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Arlo likes the self-sufficiency of not having a safety net. Well, I mean, those that can do. It's a matter of what you can manage to do. I don't mind having a safety net. It doesn't need to catch you.
Social Security has been an essential safety net for us because we were, that and Medicaid before we went to Social Security, that we went for several years in there. We were actually paying more for our health insurance and medicines than we were paying for our mortgage, and that just isn't right. Mm-hmm. That's just fundamental human need. And we aren't doing it the right way.
Yeah, there's no easy solutions to anything.
But so I rather like the idea of like the minimum basic income and stuff like that. That isn't even means based, but just everybody gets a certain basic income, and that allows people who are capable of doing more work. And most people want to work; they want to actually be useful.
And they want to get ahead. They don't want to be subsisting.
Yeah.
Life is more than just getting by.
But being able to subsist makes it possible to do other things, like go to school or...
Yeah. And Greg says, I have to figure game making is much like voice acting. You only get as well known visually as you choose to be. Yes. We'll be basically royalty at the games conventions
AGFF,
and things like that, but I could go to the supermarket without getting sworn. Yes.
A few voice actors I've seen at cons and the like really value that. Yes.
Yeah.
We're great.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've certainly heard from celebrities that it's kind of the pits to not be able to walk down the street without getting mobbed.
There's some interesting. Balsar says about Bhutan is the happiest, if not the happiest, polled place countries in the world. The majority of the population actually wanted their king to stay on, but he insisted it was time for them to become a democracy. That's really nice. And
yeah, we normally see the Nordic countries and New Zealand and I guess maybe Singapore, maybe on the list of happiest.
No, Singapore. I can't think so because Singapore, you can't live there.
Yeah, too expensive.
It's one of the most expensive places in the world to live.
Hong Kong, another one of those most expensive. We read James Clavell's books, including Noble House, a long time ago, and gives the idea that Hong Kong basically is so cramped into a small area that it's inherently expensive.
Well, I think Bhutan would be hot and humid, and Finland.
I couldn't point to Bhutan on a map, thank you. I have no idea where it is. Do you?
So it's in Asia. It's in Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia, yeah, south.
Where is the relation to Vietnam and Korea?
It's in that area.
I see.
Yes.
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. I think of that as hot and humid, and I think of Finland as cold. So it's like...
And I hear that Vietnam, north and south, is a really nice place to visit now.
It is the Himalayas. Okay, thank you. That's,
okay.
And yes, I can... All right. So is it up in the high Himalayas, or is it in the lowlands below the Himalayas? Because if it's in the highlands, then that means it's the opposite of what I was saying. Yeah.
Let me emphasize to everyone, please be polite here. That there's a couple digs going on here, and we're all people.
Yeah. Singapore is an interesting country. They have no limit. They have so limited space that they're currently in the process of creating artificial land to increase their amount of land by roughly 2%. That is interesting. We've done that forever. San Francisco did that. Lots of San Francisco, the city
Yeah,
proper, was landfill and things like that. Yeah. All right. There we go. Thank you, Belsar, for the actual information. Landlocked country in South Asia, situated in the eastern Himalayas between China in the north and India in the south.
Okay, see that I can picture.
Yeah. And then, yeah. So it could have any kind of temperature, given the fact that
Yeah, it's
it
a
could
high
be-
altitude probably.
could be
Yeah.
at a higher altitude, even though it's who knows. At any rate, I am glad it's happy.
And northern India isn't quite the, I was going to use a bad word, but
no,
not quite as excessively hot as southern India.
could be. Oh, I don't know.
I was going to use the H word.
What was the one the death pit in India? I thought that was in the northern section.
I don't know. I know a lot of places in India, but I don't know again that I could put them down on a map.
No,
And I would not have been able
My
to put any of
story-
these Eastern European.
no, I wouldn't have been able to tell you where.
Actually,
we were going.
they're we were told not to call them Eastern European. They pride themselves on being
Central. This
European.
is central. Okay, thank you. Subalpine. Okay, to lush subtropical. That actually sounds like a good temperature. There are peaks higher than 23,000 feet, 2,300 feet, 1,000 feet above sea level. That is pretty damn high. The highest unclimbed
Pretty
mountain in
hard
the
to
world.
breathe at that altitude.
Yes. The capital is, everybody's, 15% is the capital. That's not that
Yeah,
big.
Denver is famously the mile-high city, so 5,280 feet, and you start having a little bit trouble cooking, and
Yeah, it
breathing
makes
there.
a big difference. So, yeah.
you have to change your timing on.
Pretty sure they don't
Denver's
have
the recipes.
a hotel though on the top of the highest peak. So
Perhaps not.
unlike the Japanese, which put at the
Monasteries,
top of not monasteries, they put refreshment stands at the top of their peaks. Mount Fuji has a refreshment stand at the top. It's so very
Commercial.
not commercial. It's so civilized. If you're going to walk all the way up to the top of the mountain, you could get a drink, have a little tea, and and snack when you're there. Yeah.
Oh, we got scolded for thinking Austria, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary were Eastern European. Right here too. Yes, definitely considered Central Europe.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. In America, we think of East and West.
Yeah, I think of Germany as Central Europe.
Okay.
And of course, Germany in my mind is still the Germany that it was when I visited in the 70s, around 1970, that was West Germany at the time. And unified Germany obviously extends far more to the east and into a former Soviet bloc. Country.
When you get to listen to those the historians which we had on board telling us how these countries were divided up after the World War I so arbitrarily, and that there was you think of World War I, well, at least we'll think of World War I as the war to end war, and therefore there should have been peace and happiness for the next few years until World War II. And it turns out there was wars all over the place. They just weren't world wars. There was never a peaceful moment in Europe from World War I onward. There were little tiny wars and major wars everywhere. So it was very sad to learn that we were, it just... And the reason that they divided things up the way they did was so arbitrary that they caused a lot of other wars to happen. So, sigh. Best laid plans of mice and men.
We're not big fans of war. So when I was in junior high, I was, maybe ninth grade, walking around protesting U.S. involvement in Vietnam. and barely missed. Was
Yeah.
just young enough to not get drafted.
So, on 13th of December 2023, Bhutan was officially delisted as a least developed country. Progress in action, yes. Yay for them.
So they're a slightly more developed, or
Yeah, they're
less developed country now instead
At
of least
least,
developed.
yes, they're a less, yes. But they're still developing, yay. And to put it bluntly, there's an understanding worldwide that Eastern Europe equates to poor and sad and Russian, yes. Well, yeah, that's what we equated it to. But there's still, even in that poor, that standard of poor is pretty high, really.
And of course, growing up, we thought of Russia and China as being in Asia, not in Europe. And it was quite a surprise to discover how far west Moscow is later on. So, yeah.
Berlin is beautiful. Yes. Somehow I got more of what I was expecting as a European experience on my trip to Berlin and Zurich than I did to the Czech Republic and other things. There were just more plazas with the churches, classical music in the hotels, etc. More money. That's what it comes down. More tourist money, more money. War makes a marvelous game. It sucks as a reality. Yeah.
Well, what we're hearing with stuff with the the Vikings and the Celts and so on is basically certain or maybe all tribes are inherently aggressive, and they're just basically looking for a fight, and the whole idea
Your
of
culture.
yeah, the whole culture of you get to go to Valhalla if you die as a warrior, and stuff like that. So. So some peoples and individual people are just naturally aggressive, want to fight, want to have wars, and they're not comfortable in peacetime. Like Spartans. Mm-hmm. This is Sparta!
Well, yes, and when you get to read about what Sparta life was, where they got their actual name for reputation from, you get to see why they were a warlock nation, warlord nation. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to talk about?
Well,
Let me out of your talk for a few minutes.
okay. Okay.
Getting overheated.
It is warm today. It is warm here in Southern California. But not as warm as it is on the East Coast, or as warm as it's going to get, for what I understand for some of you people. I feel very sorry for you, especially since we're in the land of California where everybody except us has air conditioning. So therefore, we could go places when it gets hot. But I do know that a lot of them, a lot of the United States doesn't have air conditioning, and so therefore those people are going to really suffer because that heat wave is going to hit. Let's see. Are you getting air conditioning installed in the remodel? No, we should get central heating and cooling, but we have central heating, but we don't have central cooling. Yes. Romania, Bulgaria, and that region push more of the southern or southeastern Europe view. The countries Coles visited as Central Europe, and then the region I'm from, the Baltics, in North or Northeastern Europe. In my specific country's case, it is definitely at the very least northeastern, as it is further north than Denmark, that is considered Northern Europe. Okay. I've heard that ceiling fans can be quite helpful for the heat. Well, we did. We put in a ceiling fan in our bedroom. Then we were smart and we switched to the other bedroom. And so now we have a room that doesn't have a ceiling fan for our bedroom. It was actually the master bedroom, and we decided to move into the master bedroom after all. And of course, it doesn't have a ceiling fan, so we're going to have that put in. And Arlo says, I want to ask how long the hero's hair is. In 1, it looks like it was long. In 2, it was short. In 3 and 4, it was short during regular gameplay, but long in the close-up. It looks long if you zoom in enough. I think that his hair length is probably mid, so it would be here, because he doesn't cut it every day, and yes. We have the heating ducts for it, yes, so we could probably do it. When you play the Quest for Glory games nowadays, will you use the fan-made patches that fixes a lot of the bugs? You better believe it. We are not masochists. We do know our games are terribly buggy. So we're so glad that people took the time and effort to fix them. And we really appreciate every fan who has ever played the game and tried to make it better, you know? So we will thank you people gladly for all you have done for this. And Brainiac says, I've always had a ceiling fan in my bedroom since I was 6. I find airflow and white noise quite helpful for my sleep habits. The white noise we use is an air filter, so we always have an air filter running, so we get that. And I will have the windows open at night if I can help it, yes. Yes. Yes, Steam does that. That's why we have those patched up, ready to go. Corey's coming in.
It's patched up.
Our games. If we play our games, you better believe they are the modern major update and that they have all the patches. Because that is the right way to make a game. I mean, we've patched I can't tell you how many patches we made.
I lost all my hair while I was gone.
Tisk, to Road to Redemption. We made a lot of different patches to that. We even made it to Tilly's Tale. Because keeping it good, keeping it fun is important. Oh, let's see. Hero's hair is like Hercules in the old live-action TV show. Shouldn't be quite that long.
On hot and sometimes wavy.
Yeah, well, that makes him look good. Really. And Roadworks Gaming said good things about heat pumps. Though he spent a lot of money doing some crazy geothermal storage in his house. Yeah, heat pumps have been around for a long time, and they've had a good reputation. It's certainly in Arizona, people started to use them.
Yeah, we had the evaporative cooler, or what they call a swamp cooler, when we were up in the mountains near Oakhurst, and that worked really well up to about 90 degrees outside.
Oh, it works well
in a dry area.
Yes, it only works like in Arizona. Arizona had a lot of swamp coolers. That was a major.
Super cheap to operate and did a very good job of cooling.
And technologically, really simple versus modern refrigeration units.
Blow air past water.
Yes. Well, let's face it. Who's doing Hero's haircuts? It's Hero. So you take it. And you take your knife and you slash through it. So it's not styled, that's for sure. 'Cause he ain't got no barber where the barber's playing fish. So he's not around.
Either that or the barber is Sweeney Todd.
No, okay. Well, he didn't get a haircut from Sweeney Todd either.
He's still with us, yeah.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, we only managed to eat up 1 hour and 50 minutes of talking about the trip, so...
That was a long time.
That was a long time.
So our plans now, well, other than we also talked about what we're doing, so we will be at the game convention in a few weeks.
And, yeah.
And, let's see, and we're planning on starting Quest for Glory 2, I guess, the next
stream in 2 weeks. 2 weeks would be the 29th of June.
Right, we will be playing, and
we'll play, of course, the EGA original version of Heroes Quest.
EGA typing version for all you people.
Part of it is because when I played the VGA remake, that was too hard for me.
How old do you imagine Hero is in the end of Quest for Glory 5? Well, time is relative, and there's a lot of different time things. I imagined when he was starting out, even though the time doesn't work here, but his naivety and his willingness to do things, I figured he was 16 years old when he started out.
Oh, really? I thought it was closer to 18 to 20.
No, because he's, think of how he is.
I know, I figure about 10 years passed over the course of the 5 games.
Yeah, so even though that isn't what the timeline says.
It's not canon, but, we kind of visualize it as
about
2 years
and my thought is that he's probably about 26. Not quite 10 years between the games.
Okay.
If the game does take 12 years, then he might be at least 30 if he was 18 and 1. So yeah, the time is fluid here, but maturity level is, and face it, that people had to mature earlier in fantasy games because they're modeled after Central European. And if you were at 16, you better have your job figured out because you were probably apprenticed to somebody in
That
there.
kind of works as far as the weapon master's arrogance towards the so-called hero is. You're just a kid.
He is a kid, and he starts out as a kid, and he does.
You'll never be able to learn this. Forgetting, of course, that he learned it at 14 or whatever.
He learned it at 12. That's the difference. Is that if you grew up in a family that did this, and Hero did not grow up in a family that is royal or expensive, because he starts out with nothing. So therefore,
sort of like tennis players or gymnasts.
He's Hogwarts graduate age. That's an interesting way to start to think about it.
Graduate. I don't think he's that old. No.
Yeah. So therefore, 16 is better for. Yeah.
I don't know. When did
People
Harry
in the
start
old
at
days
Hogwarts? Was he like 8 or was he like 12 at the beginning?
Yeah. And then
He might have.
He was turning 11, wasn't he? You people
He has
will
a
correct
birthday.
us. Yes, he has a
Anyone who's
birthday at the beginning.
Yeah,
Anybody
that's
of the Potter fans out there that are still
how
Potter
old
fans?
how old was Harry Potter
When he
at the
got
very
his
beginning of the series?
when he had his birthday,
When
yeah,
he got his owl.
his letters.
His letters.
Yeah.
Letters by owl. His invitation to Hogwarts.
People in the old days were, while less worldly, matured sooner. Well, they had to.
11th birthday.
Thank you.
LSU. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That's what I
Okay,
thought.
good memory.
I know.
Though he didn't even like the series as much as I did, but
No. But yeah.
yeah, I read everything. I read the Twilight series, and that was fine too. Larry hates that.
The reality of the matter was you have to work. You honestly have to work when you're in that situation. So, trying to be a hero is not a really good job for a person that's going to have a family or it's not what your father wants you to do. Your mother certainly doesn't want you to go off adventuring. So says that even if we don't go with the book, by the book being canon, even if that is not considered canon, Hero has to be an orphan, because otherwise you don't get to go pick up your backpack and go off and do.
Or you could be running away from home.
Yep. Coming back as an adult, Harry Potter is full of holes, but I don't care. Okay. But yes, you can enjoy it, but...
For Harry Potter Wiki, first years are typically 11 to 12 years of age.
Okay.
So what age are they when they graduate, Balthazar?
Yeah. Yes, a friend of mine who's a decade younger than I has much the same thinking. It's too formative to be truly critiqued by him.
So our online school was originally the School for Heroes, and it was we visualized it as American high school, as opposed to European. When they talk about high school, they actually mean what we would call college or technical
Junior
college.
Yeah.
Technical college, Technische Hochschule in Germany.
There, we get the quotes so to know exactly.
6 years are typically 16 to 17 years of age.
So while I don't really, I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, I do appreciate Harry Potter, and I
The world building. Yeah.
The world, well, no, because the world building sucked.
Oh well.
It's the magic has no control.
What do you appreciate about it?
I did like the thrill of those books. I did like the spirit of the books of this adventure and the phenomena it became, because it was a cultural phenomena. We were honestly, for the first time in ever, everybody was reading a book, and they were kids reading books. So I will always be grateful for that, for rallying for that moment where people were lining up to honestly read a book. Give me a break. That's something that has never ever happened, and I'm so thrilled. I really am. It was phenomenal.
Got lots of
probably
people to read.
almost every one of you out there have read it. It's a common experience that we all share. So yeah. All right. A number of people have asked if I write when I tell them about my trips. Apparently, it's a thing. I heard about a woman who I think got $1 million contract because she wrote a book about her experience hiking the Appalachian Trail or something.
Or Appalachian, depending on who you ask.
Appalachian, yes. Whoever heard that? Yes.
We were told that Appalachian is the only correct way to pronounce it by an author, and no, to us it's always been Appalachian.
Yes. I guess you
And I
guys
grew
can
up in
write now that
Pennsylvania.
you've taken your first trip. I'm not a real writer to that type of a writer, so I probably won't. But you'll be lucky to have a
Yeah, finishing a book's hard.
yeah. Entry level for the Boy Scouts is your 11th birthday, or entering 5th grade. Ah, interesting. I did not know that. Yes, and
I was Boy Scout, and my son was a Boy Scout, but I couldn't have told you what age they were.
Right, really. Yeah, you'd think. Have you read Wheel of Time? Well, yes and no. I read the first book of Wheel of Time. When it came out, and that was it, because I didn't get past it because there was no other book to read. Kids lining up to read books was quite strange. It was. Google says 7th year would be the last year of study at Hogwarts. I wonder if it's modeled after A levels. Yes, it's
Absolutely
probably.
is.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely
of
is.
course, yeah. It was the British system. Yeah. The magic system makes no sense. The world makes no sense, and yet it was close enough that it didn't matter to young me. Yes. It also depends on what age you started reading those books, whether it bothered you that these things make no sense.
Yeah, the interesting thing about it is it's wish fulfillment in one way, but another way, I mean, there is a lot of horrific stuff going on.
There is. It's horrible.
Yeah,
I mean,
so it's a scary world, but it was also one that young people get to be heroes.
right.
And that's kind of people crave, doing things that are important.
Yeah. So Arlo actually hasn't read it. That's interesting. I'll bet you're, a
Potter
minority.
virgin?
Yeah.
Hogwarts Virgin.
Yeah. A minority. You do not need anything. You don't need to go. It isn't one of those situations of it's a must read. You could certainly live without reading it. Although I will say that I still put movie number 3, Prisoner of Azkaban, on my favorite movies, even out of context of Harry Potter, because it really brought that world to life.
When I read Lord of the Rings, it was not really a thing. Not very many people did that, and it just happened that there was a cute and intelligent girl named Donna in my junior high school class who was reading. I asked her about it, and she told me a little bit about it. And said, "Oh, I got to read that." And so, of course, as I often did, I read The Lord of the Rings and later read The Hobbit. And you're really supposed to read The Hobbit first, but they're very different types of books.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to have had the context from The Hobbit.
You don't need it.
When I later read The Hobbit, it was like, oh, this is kind of thin and compared to the
Right. It wasn't
majesty of Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
But
Corey
when I
got
reread
into
it,
Tolkien to impress a girl. Of course.
no, I got into Tolkien because I liked the girl and she was smart, and therefore I trusted her.
Very good. That's a
Trusted her
nice
instincts.
take of that. Really. Whereas I
was completely inept around relationships in junior high and high school. I had people I liked and didn't do anything about it.
Whereas I was writing a major report in sophomore year of high school about Lord of the Rings and its Norse mythology references and things like that.
You assigned that?
No, we were given any subject, and that was the
Okay.
subject I picked for my essays. Which I, because I hate to write, honestly hate to write, I did this long report, but I filled it with illustrations so that it looked even longer.
Did you draw them or?
Yeah, well, yes, I drew all the illustrations for it, or I copied illustrations and things like that. Yeah. 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 Those first few relationships were cringe, as my kid says. Yeah. All of us feel cringe when looking back at our adolescent years. Yes.
Well, I mostly didn't have. Well, I had friendships.
You
I had
had,
friendships. Yeah. I didn't have intimate relations because I just wouldn't know how to go about it.
Yeah. We're cringe.
So nothing to cringe about.
Neither the first nor the last. Young adult is cringe. Young adult depends. Some of the best books I've ever read are in the young adult category. It's gotten so broad that there's a lot of crap out there. Of course, saying that it's 99% of anything is crap. There's a lot of crap there, but there's some of the best books. My favorite books, like Riddle Master of Head is a young adult book, but just fantastic. So yeah. Brainiac says, "No, I was a perfect angel. Just ask my mother." Yeah.
I see. So you and your mother had a relationship. Interesting.
Yes, guest learning. How to be an adult is painful. Life is painful, boy. You don't, this is what, we gloss over the fact that adolescence, terribly painful. Pre-adolescent, you're helpless and you're stuck and and you go to school and you've got bullies and all these horrible things and you have no control over your life. Every stage of your life, it's misery and a mess. And yet, despite it, we all managed to get to this point in our lives, and we're having, making the most of what we can. So, yeah.
So, there was a young lady I was very interested in high school and wanted to ask her out on a date. But I was 15 and therefore didn't have a driver's license. And was I going to ask my parents to take us somewhere? And I had no idea how to go about it because, you read about asking girls out on dates, but, they don't talk about these little logistical issues of what is a date or anything else. And of course, what I thought was a date back then was, you go and go out to a movie or something, maybe hold hands, something like that. And years later, I learned that going out on a date apparently is a synonym for having sex with. So never would have occurred to me as a teenager.
It wasn't in our era, yeah. Yes. As Belzar says, but life is suffering, Your Highness. Anyone who tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something.
Yeah, teen magazines and such were like, letters to the editor of, is it okay to kiss a boy on the third date? It's like, okay. Not very realistic with what really happens.
Princess Bride is an incredibly cynical book. If you ever read the actual book, it's a great book. But it's about as cynical as you can get. And
I absolutely loved the book. It was one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. And when the film came out, we were really delighted that the film is almost as good as the book. And in some ways better. And
in other ways worse. The rodents of ridiculous size are really hokey looking. Even when it came out, they looked hokey. And the fight, the sword fight between our hero and Dread Pirate Rogers and Inigo Montoya doesn't have the pacing and the thrill that the book does. Yes, you read that sequence of that sword fight, and it's like awesome,
absolutely riveting.
And the movie just didn't capture it. Even though they really worked to capture it. But it's still a classic, and the movie is, to my mind, better than the book, because the book you have to discard a lot of pages of it. Basically, there were whole sections that I read once and will never read again in the book, so.
Well, the 80 pages on hat styles and...
Yeah. Yes. I read the book, and the torture dungeon was insane. Okay, yeah. How it must have been to an adult.
To be an adult. That golden period of storytelling was coming out. Well, of course, adults mostly, like Skip OSX, No Time Gotta Work, didn't actually read any of that young adult stuff. So Robert Heinlein wrote both adult and young adult science fiction. Some of his stuff is kind of cringeworthy.
Yes.
But yet every book has great ideas and exciting things going on.
Yes, Belzar says, like pages of song lyrics in The Hobbit. Yeah, songs, poems, boy, those are things you skip when you're reading because you're you're getting to the end of that book,
Whereas I'm there trying to figure out the tune.
Yeah. Well, I'm the one that reads a book, or reads 2 books a day. So therefore, there's a reason I can manage that.
She's about 5 or 10 times faster than I am, and I was considered a speed reader.
But yeah, so the Wesley Inigo sword fight really is well done. It just, to my mind, its pacing's off. It's so, and it's a theatrical thing.
I don't think so. I think it's really good. I think it's
could
really good in the film, but it's amazing in the book.
Yeah, and I just think it was, the accuracy is there. I think it comes down to what good filmmaking can do. I don't think that the movie added anything to the scene. And a good film enhances it because it's visual. So that's my complaint with that one. And so therefore, coming down to song lyrics in The Hobbit, the greatest moment in the Hobbit movie, the first one.
Goes ever on and
No,
on.
that's not what
No.
I was going to say.
Okay.
In The Hobbit, the greatest moment in that movie was when the dwarves began to sing.
Oh.
That just raises the hair on the back of the neck when they start to sing, and suddenly the magic of the book was brought to life. I mean, you can hate on those Hobbit movies all you want. There were magical moments in that. There were magical moments in Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah, I saw a making of the Hobbit film, and there was the moment when Fran asks, I can't remember the actor's name now that played Thorin.
Yeah, I can't remember Thorin.
Anyway.
Richard Armitage.
Richard Armitage, yes. And said, oh, by the way, can you sing? And he says, well, yes. As opposed to most of us would say, kind of or whatever. And said, well, in saying, well, yes, he was kind of exaggerating because, man, that guy can sing.
Yeah.
All over the misty mountains. Cold.
Gold.
Oh, da da da. Da, 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 da.
Yes, especially since if you see it, you can watch it on, I think it's Disney, or one of them had it.
Disney Plus,
or that had the making of that, or at least it's on YouTube, I know that. When they asked him to do a cold reading of it, and he was supposed to sing that, and so he was making up the tune as he was doing a cold reading of that. So he's pretty impressive all in all.
Yep.
Kind of on topic, I love random lore books in games, even though you can definitely have too much. Been playing a lot of Vermintide 2 recently.
Okay.
And they incorporate it really well with the party banter, slowly fleshing out the backstory while you murder Skaven and Northanders. Well, we did that, extensively in Road to Redemption, of having that book in the library that keeps giving you more information and that. Giving you all the back.
And it's it's tough to give a whole lot of story while without ruining the pacing. So games and movies both have different versions of that.
And Belsar says, I love the Peter Jackson, Loader, and Hobbit movies. Well, they're really, I really like them. And I really, Lord of the Rings, there was moments in that. As long as it's the extended versions, I really loved them.
Yeah, the idea of stretching out The Hobbit to that many films, but
yes.
really, the book is kind of short, but there's a lot of really epic stuff that happens in there, and there's room to fill it out.
Yeah.
So.
And
the film actually worked.
Game of Thrones was better than the books, in my humble opinion. Game of Thrones book was the one I threw against the wall, so they managed to get 5 seasons out of that. What the best part of Game of Thrones on television was that theme song, and that opening sequence that they had was just so phenomenal. Yes. Arlos is circling back to the topic of how sometimes a tour won't cut it. I went to Crete to see the Minoan ruins and got some good information on the snake goddess. When I went to Athens, I saw how she had evolved over time into Athena, but that's not something I could have gotten from any organized tour. No tour was going from Crete to Athens. I had to do that on my own. Precisely, yes, you need to do it.
So we will get up to Crete eventually.
Yes, we also want to do the Nile. We want to, we're of course we know our Egyptian
Yeah,
mythology.
but you're in
too.
denial all the time.
Yeah, really. That's your game, Tori. Uh, it's fascinating. I couldn't believe how accurate Fate of Atlantis was when I started researching the legend of Atlantis. Well, all of us people who care really spend the time.
They did the research.
I
And you
mean,
do the research.
like I complained that somebody at Sierra got to go to a Bavarian castle of Mad King Ludwig, but my God, she did the work. She did the research. She always did that. So Jay Jensen really worked to get these games to make them good. And yes, just like Noel Falstein, and who was the main game writer on Fate of Atlantis? Can't think. Well, you guys
wasn't Gilbert or Schaefer.
no.
Hal Barwood? Hal Barwood was involved with it. Hal Barwood had a Hollywood career before he went to work for LucasArts, and loved games and got to bring Hollywood aesthetic to some of the Lucas games.
When you go to Egypt, do your research on local rules to maintain your personal safety. We will definitely go on a professional tour for that. Just like
Which one? Egypt?
Egypt.
Ah.
Yeah, because, it's not exactly necessarily the safest place on earth, really, too.
Yeah, we always got warned about pickpockets in various towns and
Yes.
so on.
They didn't use the word gypsy, but a lot of people implied the
strongly
word
implied
gypsy.
that the Romani.
That way they could, it's that way it wasn't their people that would be doing this. It was those people. So we did get some of that there. And I did see people that looked like they could have been gypsies in our game.
Yep.
Really. I mean, I swore this one woman, she could have been telling fortunes on the side. She just looked like she was out of the more like 18-somethings that had walked out of the
Yeah, my mother's memory of India was she was really disappointed because everyone was trying to sell her things, and including family members of her friend from the U.S. But we didn't really get that impression at all on this trip. That there were people selling stuff, but nobody was pushy about it.
I don't know. We did go to that farmer's house.
Oh, well, yeah, but he was hilariously pushy.
He was hilariously pushy. He was designed to be hilariously pushy. So, yes, we did go to a Croatian farmer.
Big fish that got away stories and so on.
Yes. A lot, yes. He was hilarious. And let's see. When Roadworks went to Egypt in the 90s, right now, Egypt's in a politically unstable position, and it's hard to say what's going to happen there, yes. I do recommend going out on our own. I did, and it was fine. I find the Egyptian people to be perfectly lovely. I just want to make sure I know where I'm going. Don't go to Mauritania, even if Atlantis was once there. Okay. Arlo says, my first trip to Egypt after they opened after COVID. The people were doing so poorly, they wouldn't let us throw out food because they wanted to give it to starving children. That's wonderful. Yes, and of course that's modern times. So.
Yeah.
In tourist spots, there will be more crime no matter what you do, because after all, thieves go where there's money to be found, and and we've seen tourists that are incredibly inane.
Yeah, we have the conflicts as lifetime liberals and environmentalists and so on. Of course, I've gone back and forth in the political spectrum, but always been interested in environment. But when we came time to buy our last car, it was like, okay, do we get the exact car we want, but it's not hybrid or electric, or do we compromise on other things and get the one? It turns out we drive it so little that we don't contribute much to pollution. But
2020 was the best time to go. Yay! A lot of their economy is tourism. Yes, COVID would have been horrible. Yeah, lots of countries had suffered because of COVID, because of the tourism, because of, Sofia, Bulgaria depends on tourism. all of these countries, the major cities we went to are, are tourist traps, tourist spots, and that's how those people, can survive. And
That's interesting. I expected them to, have menus in multiple languages and so on, but I asked a couple of the waiters every place that said, no, we only have local language and English.
Yep.
So they were prepared for English speakers everywhere we went. A few people were, a little shy about it, but they all spoke at least some English.
Yes, never thought of Egypt as an impoverished country before you went there. Yeah, well, everybody's suffering. I mean, it doesn't matter where you go. And COVID hit everybody hard and affected everybody's life, wherever you go.
And basically, just in the last 25 years, we've had two of the biggest things that happened in our lifetime. So, we grew up during the Vietnam War and so on. That was an issue, but 2001, 9/11, 2001, when those planes went into the World Trade Center, all of a sudden America wasn't safe anymore.
Yeah.
And the restrictions after that with the TSA and billions of dollars spent on airport security and so on made the whole world a lot less open than it was. And then the second one being COVID, that was just such a complete shock to everything that we knew or did. So there have been some real world-changing events, and now we've got the heat waves and so on, but they're a little more gradual.
Let's see. Yes, you can't photograph certain places. That's why I'd really go first of all with a guide that actually knows and can give you those restrictions. Because yes, there were churches we could not film in when we went into them. Other churches, we sat in the pew. Well, one of the churches we went to, we got to listen to their huge pipe organ do Toccata and Fugue in G minor, and the other one, our tour guide just stood beside us and gave us lecture the whole time, and the whole church was full of tourists, and it's like, well, is this an active church? I mean, this is the one that got me was, in the Catholic / I guess even in the Orthodox, you go in and you use the holy water and you do the sign of the cross. They had holy hand sanitizer.
Yes.
Honest to God, holy.
They used the hand sanitizer, and Lori was like, "That's their holy hand sanitizer."
It was. It had been blessed by the Pope. It was holy.
Or whatever, by the bishop.
No, he said, it was directly from their highest holy man. So that was just blew me away. Yes.
And I got sick anyway, so apparently it wasn't blessed
enough.
Yes,
obviously it wasn't.
Actually wore off after a few days.
Back in the day, they had heavily subsidized bread, so at least people didn't die. I'm not sure what's happened since the Arab Spring. Yeah. Beautiful paintings. And ever since 9/11, there's been an agreement with the U.S. that American citizens need to be provided security. Our bus had a police car that would run its sirens, so cars would have to move out of their way for you.
Wow.
God. I wouldn't worry about going to Egypt. Tourism is important. They don't do anything to harm that, because that's, And, yes, just, not just cultural things, but certain government infrastructure things in Egypt that they don't want people photographing.
Yeah.
Well, in America, you can't photograph in a vicinity of the VA hospital or private hospitals. They will come up and they will want to look at your pictures to see what you're photographing. So during that
confiscate your camera if they don't like what you're doing, or at least make you erase them.
So surprisingly, it's not just that. And boy, you do not want to try to take a picture near a nuclear power plant. Believe me.
Or any military base.
Or any military base. You will have people coming up and talking to you, yes. Holy hand sanitizer +2 versus undead. Clearly not +2 against germs, though. Yeah.
Well, it probably was. I mean, I didn't get sick till several days later.
Yeah. Yes, it's possible. Could have.
Might have been +2 versus germs.
Could be. So, at any rate, I think at 4:20 we can wrap this up because we are not feeling well.
We're not perfect.
We are not perfect, yes. And next time we will be playing, or whatever the game
Okay,
is.
so we should remind everyone to get to our Discord, which is go into Discord and search for Transsolar Games with just one S in the middle. And go to our Patreon, which I linked earlier, but I should probably link again.
If you haven't already been there. Good. Okay. That's it.
Yeah, let's go to the main page. So here's our Patreon again. And because we'll have a lot more about the trip and so on there.
Right. We will keep you posted. We will have things on Facebook. You know, as I said, you might want to check the Quest for Glory AI thing because there was some phenomenal stuff going on there.
You can find that.
Zach Green, in particular, was posting some very, very interesting interpretations of Quest for Glory from the evil side of the
villains.
Yes, from you have to go to groups. There it is. Down. There.
Quest for Glory AI Arts.
There it is. Now you can share that.
Okay, I'll give the link too.
Okay, fine.
Here's the link to the Quest for Glory AI Arts and
here it
going
is.
to the desktop.
And we'll roll through it.
This is a private group. You have to
ask for membership.
Oh,
Wow, I haven't seen that one before.
This is suitable for work?
You know, it's not suitable for work, clearly.
Just a few. This one's beautiful. This one's just gorgeous.
So you'll see some interesting illustrations there, yes. Yes.
It's just lovely.
Yes. So, yeah.
And, it does good stuff. Okay, here's Quest for Glory Ends. That's a new contest they have.
Okay.
Shamin and Abdullah, wonder if they will ever get to see Shapir again.
Isn't that?
That mood lighting in there.
Yes, nice lighting, yes.
And that
kind of looks like Liz Taylor. I'll go with that, yeah.
And that fireplace, it's better than we had in the game.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's, the fireplace, this is like $3 billion worth of technology went into making this. So,
yeah.
How about that? You can,
Oh, here's a couple of different versions of it. Here's one, and then this one. How about that for an Elsa?
If it is an Elsa, I think that's Hero.
That's the female hero.
That's the female hero.
That's the female hero we're supposed to have, but we didn't have the budget for.
Right, that's their take on the female hero. There's somebody, Jack is doing a...
Jack Povlitz did essentially a walk cycle for the...
female version.
And...
Past, this is Heroine's Quest. That was Heroine's Quest Hero.
Okay.
So, that's fine. I'm just to see if you can get back to...
Some of the contest ones and such.
Yes. There's the Heroine's version. Yes. This is Zach Green and his Greek.
Oh, I see. This is
yes, that's using the Heroine, yes, as version. There's a walk cycle.
Yeah.
Okay,
walk cycles are really hard. We found they're still really hard when we did Hero U. Is trying to get it so a character moves smoothly without looking like they're slipping, and so on. Very challenging.
And yes, they're doing creative stuff. How about Elsa
heading
and Toro heading to Samaria? How about that image? I mean, there's just so much creative stuff. Things, yes. The most distracting thing about Heroine's Quest for me was how the ego sprite was obviously based off of Carandia too. Yes, that's the 3D one. How about that?
Fenris learning the Dazzle spell.
So there's some real fun stuff. Definitely, take a look at it.
Yeah, check out this group.
Because they're doing all sorts of things.
Oh, I love this one personally. This is sort of Fenris and Gandalf.
Yeah, really. Yep. R.C. McGee says, I love this. I imagine them standing in line at a Sears portrait studio to take this photo. So have fun with it. We really think you'll enjoy it.
There's good stuff out there.
And we'll all see you in 2 weeks.
And we hope you all join our Patreon because there will be a lot more posts with stuff from our trip and upcoming things and so on. And then we've got the Adventure Game Fanfare we mentioned coming up end of July.
And we'll talk more then.
And there will be more, yeah.
So have fun.
We'll see you all in 2 weeks on June 29th.
Stay well, and, keep on adventuring.
Yay!
Bye-bye!
And role-playing. Don't forget to role-play.
Yes. All right.